With all 10 head coaches signed up, there are 10 different teams going in 10 different directions entering the 2026 NFL season. Whether or not it is a team like the Baltimore Ravens and Buffalo Bills that have their franchise quarterback, or a team like the Raiders that may just be drafting their franchise quarterback at 101 in Fernando Mendoza. Whatever it is, each of these coaches are going to be tasked with taking their teams to their Super Bowls. So let's take a look, break down each of the 10 hires, and I'm going to give them a letter grade, A to F, whether or not I think the fit is good and they will last with their current team. So let's get into this video here on Blitz Sports Media. What's going on, everybody? I'm Blitz Link. Without further ado, I think I'm going to start off with the best hires and worst hires. At the end, we're going to start with Jesse Minter for the Baltimore Ravens. He comes over from the Los Angeles Chargers as their defensive coordinator. He also served as Jim Harbaugh's defense coordinator at Michigan when they had a title run as well. Minter was one of the hottest names available this offseason. His unit ranked third in points per game allowed, seventh in yards per play allowed, fifth in passing yards per play allowed, and he has helped the Chargers defense, despite injuries on that unit year after year, become one of the most consistent defensive units in the NFL. He brings that stability to the Baltimore Ravens, who have had stability during the Lamar Jackson era. They haven't had that Super Bowl run, and they're hoping that Jesse Minter can get them over the top. I think having a specialist, they let Mike McDonald walk 2 years back. He is now in the Super Bowl for the Seattle Seahawks, was a big mistake. Adding Minter is a high upside young defensive coordinator that can grow with Lamar Jackson, potentially provide a different style that they didn't have with John Harbaugh as their head coach, and that gives them an elite upside. Now, the offensive hire, they're going to have to crush this with Declan Doyle. Obviously, this team goes through Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, right? There's no sugarcoating that. And if Lamar continues to have these shortcomings in the postseason, I don't know if this team will ever win a Super Bowl, but adding a new offensive mind in Declan Doyle, who served under Ben Johnson this year, 29 years old, a young up and coming offense coordinator, is definitely exciting for Ravens fans. And they crushed their defensive hire in Jesse Minter. And I think that Zach Orr, while he has received a lot of noise for these struggles on the defensive side of the ball, I think it's very valid there. Minter is going to come in. His scheme fits perfectly for what Baltimore wants to do on the defense side of the ball. And I think this is an A- hire for the Baltimore Ravens. It was a great move overall for them. Heading into the second guy, we're going to get into John Harbaugh, the guy that just coached the Baltimore Ravens. And personally, I think it depended on the situation where he went as to how the fit was going to go for me. I think the New York Giants are a very strong fit overall for John Harbaugh. They have a quarterback in place in Jackson Dart, who showed some flashes last season of some elite upside. They also have Malik Neighbors, Cam Scatterbo on that offense as well. Defensively, they have one of the best pass rushes in football, but lack playmakers in the secondary, which caused some shortcomings on that unit throughout the season. So this Giants roster, they got some talent, but over the last few seasons under Brian Daboll, it seems like they haven't necessarily had a winning culture or any sort of leadership to push this team over the hump. Ultimately, I think that while John Harbaugh does have shortcomings, he is a guy that provides stability and potentially inserts a winning culture. He's going to have to crush his offensive coordinator hires and defensive coordinator hires if they're going to be successful. But Harbaugh has provided stability throughout his entire tenure for the Baltimore Ravens, and that's why he lasted so long. Sure, this team didn't get over the hump the last few times of the postseason, but Harbaugh is going to provide that stability. He knows how to win, and that's something this New York Giants organization desperately needs right now after a few rough seasons. And even this last decade has been pretty rough for them. The next guy, Clint Kubiak, one of the hottest names over the last 2 seasons, offense coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks, is heading over to the Las Vegas Raiders, where he gets that elusive #1 overall pick in Fernando Mendoza, most likely. Seattle's 2025 offense under Kubiak was disgusting. Third in points per game at 28.4, eighth in total yards per game at 351, eighth in passing yards per game, and they were one of the top offenses in EPA this season. This comes off a year where Kubiak was very impressive with the New Orleans Saints last season, and he had over Seattle, and now he's got Sam Darnold playing at an MVP type level. Not every coach can say that, and Kubiak can attribute that to his success potentially, and that led to his name being discussed in multiple head coaching jobs this offseason. And the Raiders having that elusive #1 overall pick made that job enticing. I mean, he already has Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers in place on the offensive side of the ball, which are two young, intriguing pieces that this team added. And I think his scheme will fit well in utilizing both of those players' strengths, unlike Chip Kelly's scheme did this past year. And we will see what Fernando Mendoza becomes, but I think in this type of offense, he can be successful if he can be accurate and play within schedule in the scheme. It'll come down to the defensive hire. Can this defense coordinator figure out how to slow down that division? Because Kubiak might have the tallest task of all of these head coaches, being in the AFC West and going against Patrick Mahomes, Bo Nix, and Justin Herbert 6 times during a season. I think this is a B minus hire for the Las Vegas Raiders, and we're going to see how it plays out in a very tough division. The fourth best hire, Robert Saleh for the Tennessee Titans. And Saleh, this is his second head coaching stint. Previously was the New York Jets head coach. We all know how gross that was. He finished with a 20-36 record, completely revitalized his name for the San Francisco 49ers with the amount of defensive injuries this team had this year and the strengths that they displayed on the defensive side of the ball due to Saleh's play calling and scheme over the past season. While I do think Saleh's first tenure in New York was clouded with a bunch of other stuff, I am a bit concerned that that stuff could be attributed to Saleh's ability to manage the games, come through, and he hasn't proven that he is a winner yet. So while a lot of people think Robert Saleh is just a surefire great hire because he's a great coordinator, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to translate that to a head coach. I think bringing in Brian Dable was a big plus for this Titans team. You have two guys that have been head coaches now coming in. They have that experience and they can bounce it off each other. I know both of them haven't won a lot as head coaches, but they do have good ideas, and I think Dable is going to be a big plus for Cam Ward, and Saleh is going to try to revitalize this defense that does not have a lot of talent. I think he will make them better heading into 2026, and the Titans just need to get better and slowly chip away at that division over the next 2 seasons. I give this one a solid B minus. The next guy, Mike LaFleur for the Arizona Cardinals. And I think this one's a little controversial for people in a large part due to that Sean McVay basically controls that Los Angeles Rams offense. And everybody's like, oh, LaFleur doesn't do all that much. And I kind of disagree with this. LaFleur has had a significant impact in this role. And we have seen Sean McVay coordinators have a lot of success at other stops around the NFL. And, being in the division, it is what it is. Arizona's coming off a 3-14 season. We all know how tough the NFC West is on a year-to-year basis. But the thing is, I just love the hire. And I think that it will make this offense a bit more stable with, having a guy like Trey McBride, utilizing Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson correctly alongside the ground game that has steadily been one of the better units over the last 3 seasons in a per total yard statistic. And then they got to figure out that quarterback situation. If they bring back Kyler Murray, how will this offense look? Are they looking to move on? That's the tough part of this job that LaFleur is taking, but they invested a ton of money in this team last season. They had a pretty good draft, drafting Walter Nolan and Will Johnson, two young upside pieces in there. So there's some talent in Arizona, but it comes down to what LaFleur is going to be able to do at the quarterback position, and that is a to be determined situation. I give this one a C plus. I think LaFleur is a bit underrated, but he's also heading into an incredibly tough task with the Cardinals in that division. Kevin Stefanski, next guy on our list, and I'm giving him a solid C. I think Stefanski, while I think he does provide stability on the offensive side of the ball, I think he is a little bit overrated for what he's done during his tenure in Cleveland. We've seen guys leave the Cleveland Browns and have career seasons. Let's use Baker Mayfield, for example, and his development as a quarterback. You are entering a situation with Michael Penix Jr., who currently just can't stay on the field and is coming off another significant injury and really struggled this season. And you have elite weapons in the offense, like Bijan Robinson, elite player, Drake London, elite player. If they return Kyle Pitts, he's ascended this last season, but Stefanski has really struggled to utilize wide receivers consistently in his time with Cleveland. That makes me concerned about Drake London. I'm not worried about Bijan Robinson at all. One of the best players in football. And then on the defensive side of the ball, man, I know they're bringing back Jeff Ulbrich, which is a good defensive move for them with how this defense has been, but they rely so heavily on that pass rush that last season, and a lot of teams were able to run the football on that. So with Stefanski, I do think the stability part is good, but he's also lost a lot of games in Cleveland with a lot of talent on that roster as well. So while I think a lot of people are like, oh, that's a former coach of the year, provides stability in Atlanta, I'm not sure that's the upside hire that I want for the Falcons. It feels like a cap ceiling for them. The next guy is Joe Brady for the Buffalo Bills. And while I think Joe Brady is a very qualified candidate for this position, it is more of what happened ahead of this that led to the Bills hiring Joe Brady. So you have Sean McDermott. They lose the playoff game. They fire him. It comes out that, McDermott questioned the roster that they had and the shortcomings of what the team that he had to go out there and win with. They fired him right after that loss. The ownership goes out and makes claims that it wasn't their idea to draft Keon Coleman. It was actually the coaching staffs. And then obviously there's clips of Brandon Beane saying that he would love to draft Keon Coleman. So that deteriorated a lot of people away from this position. You had Mike McDaniel and Phillip Rivers both withdraw their names from this position, despite having Josh Allen at quarterback. It seems like the ownership, and they literally promoted Brandon Beane to even a higher position for this team, and he's missed on a ton of draft picks over the last few years. So with Buffalo, it feels like you're coming in as a coach. You might be a little bit lower than the GM and the owner. It's not super enticing. But with Joe Brady being back, like, it just makes me question, like, if you're going to go with the same type of scheme, the same type of team, the same type of build, the feel, everything with that, and they still are having these playoff shortcomings. They had no Patrick Mahomes in their way this year. There was no excuses, and they continue to run back the same exact thing. If you were going to run it back, you might as well have brought back Sean McDermott as your head coach, because now you're retrying to figure out what to do on the defensive side of the ball, despite having your offense continuity reback. But what I'll say is that Brady was great with Josh Allen. He's been really good, 29 points per game this last season. I think that offense will be just fine. We'll see, though, how this works out long term and if Buffalo can finally get that Super Bowl win. The next guy, Mike McCarthy for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This one's a C minus. Like, it just felt like they replaced Mike Tomlin with another version of Mike Tomlin on the offensive side of the ball. McCarthy, he's a good, steady coach that provides, a good floor for this team. He has a career record of 174 and 112. He's had Aaron Rodgers in the past. He was with the Cowboys, some really good offenses there, right? But this isn't an upside hire for this team to potentially go through a rebuild. It feels like hiring an older coach where they're going to retool once again an older roster, and they are never going to rebuild. The Steelers are going to continuously be stuck in that 7-10 range win range, and have an older coach that just wants to win now. This is not the strategy. You saw the Raiders try to do something like this last season, and look what happened with them this year. So I'm not super high on the Steelers hire. It'll be interesting to see if they bring back Aaron Rodgers. I thought Rodgers played well down the stretch last season. They need some more playmakers, and maybe McCarthy can unlock this offense a little bit more than Arthur Smith could. The last two guys, Todd Monken for the Cleveland Browns. No one wanted the Browns job. I talked about the Bills job having a lot of candidates withdraw. The Browns job had double the candidates withdraw, and they knew that they were entering a situation without a quarterback that was going to, elevate this roster. You have a under contract right now, Shadur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and Deshaun Watson. This is despite having one of the best defenses in football with Myles Garrett on that side of the ball. The Browns did a great job in the draft last year, getting guys like Quinshon Judkins, Carson Schwarzenegger, Harold Fannin Jr., and many more among that class that'll help this team long term. But it really feels like this Browns job was not coveted because of that quarterback position. They have a lot of holes on the offensive line. And while Todd Monken has had a ton of success as Baltimore's offense coordinator over the last 3 seasons, his teams have historically struggled to produce among top 20 offenses in all of his other years as an offense coordinator. He was a Brown at one point. And I do think they want to bring in another stability guy, but this feels like with Kevin Stefanski leaving, it's a neutral move at best. So I'm not super high on it in long term for the Cleveland Browns. And then the final one, Jeff Hafley for the Miami Dolphins. And Hafley was a big-time candidate in a lot of circles this offseason. I was not super high on him as a coach. He's a defensive identity guy, and his team absolutely fell apart when Micah Parsons and Deontay Wyatt got hurt for the Green Bay Packers this year. There's kind of levels to this. So Robert Saleh has a ton of injuries on the defensive side of the ball. His defense becomes stable enough to win some games against some really good opponents, versus Green Bay's defense was one of the worst EPA-ranked defenses in football when Micah Parsons went down. I think that says a lot as to the values of both of these coordinators and what Jeff Hafley brings to the table. The even harder part is Hafley gets a defense with not a ton of talent right now out of the gate in Miami. Is a quarterback situation in Tua Tagovailoa, which I have no clue the direction they're going. It looks like Tyreek Hill is likely to be released this offseason. Hafley is going to have his hands cut out for him. And with him being a defensive-minded guy, he is going to have to crush his offense coordinator hires and hope that they find the right quarterback to lead this team to the playoffs. There is a lot of hoping there, and I don't think Hafley's the guy to elevate a less talented roster to a bigger spot. So I'm giving this final move a D grade. Ultimately, though, guys, drop a comment down below who you think the best hire is this off season. Hit that subscribe button for more Blitz Sports Media content, and I'll catch you guys next time.